Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Kane tempts Billy's dark side. Diane's panicked visitor. The Young and the Restless spoilers for Monday, September 15th, state that Kane Ashby will entice Billy Abbott's evil side, while Diane Jenkins Abbott receives a terrified visitor. For openers, it appears that Sally Spectra will seek out Jack Abbott and appeal to his feelings for his brother. Sally will be frightened about what Billy is about to do, therefore she will go to the Abbott mansion. According to Y&R spoilers, Diane will be present when Sally arrives and will detect a dilemma involving Billy. Sally will eventually admit that Billy is about to make the biggest mistake of his life, so she may provide updates on the entire horrible story. After Kane halted the launch, he offered the AI software capable of destroying Victor. Sally may break the news to Victor, pointing out that Billy now claims he only wants to use the threat of that software to control him. A fact Sally may wonder that Victor will be scared so easily. Going against Kane's plan could also make Billy his target. It's also possible that Billy won't be able to withstand utter Victor destruction in the end. That should be a source of concern for Sally as well, because what Kane is saying is unlawful and could result in prison time. Sally may discuss all of this with Diane in the hopes of convincing Jack to intervene in some way. Diane, on the other hand, may be concerned that she will not be able to reach Billy and wish to keep Jack out of the situation. On Kane's train, he will wait for Billy's response. Kane will hope that Billy is present to make an agreement and proceed with the demise of Victor's enterprise. Kane would play up how amazing it would feel to defeat Victor, hoping to capitalize on Billy's vindictive feelings. Billy may make a compromise with Kane, but which of their goals will prevail in the end? Regardless, Victor never actually loses on the CBS drama, so Kane and Billy had best be prepared for his fury. According to the Young and the Restless spoilers, Billy may come to regret getting involved in Kane's mess. Kane Ashby tempting Billy Abbott's sinister side while Diane Jenkins Abbott faces a panicked visitor is the kind of explosive soap opera drama that perfectly encapsulates the stormy tension that the Young and the Restless thrives on. And to understand the gravity of this storyline, we must peel back the many layers of these characters and their fraught histories, because on Monday, September 15th, the chessboard of Genoa City will be filled with dangerous moves and emotional detonations that threaten to spiral out of control, starting with Kane, whose resentment of Victor Newman and his controlling reign has been simmering for far too long, finally finding what he believes to be the perfect opportunity to lure Billy into his dangerous orbit. Since Kane knows Billy has always battled his inner demons, whether it be gambling addictions, reckless business moves, or his ongoing quest to step out of his older brother Jack's shadow, and Kane is not foolish enough to approach Billy without ammunition, which is why he canceled his prior business launch but dangled an alternative that could prove far more enticing. A stolen piece of AI software with the potential to obliterate Victor's empire, software that doesn't just carry business implications but also moral ones, because its illegal nature ensures that anyone who touches it risks jail time, career suicide, and permanent damage to their reputations. But Kane is banking on the fact that Billy's anger and thirst for payback outweigh his caution, and as Billy sits across from him, we can almost feel the wheels turning in his head, the shadow of every past defeat at Victor's hands dancing in his mind, whispering that this may be the one chance to finally win, to destroy the man who has so often crushed him like an insect beneath his boot. Yet even as Kane pushes, stoking the flames of vengeance, Sally Spectra emerges as the unexpected voice of reason in this twisted tale, because while Sally has no shortage of her own questionable choices, she has developed a keen awareness of when someone is about to step too far over the line, and Billy's willingness to flirt with Kane's proposal terrifies her, sending her into a frantic state of panic, because if Billy signs on, she knows that Kane's plan won't end with a bluff. It will escalate until they're all caught in an inescapable disaster, and so Sally rushes to the Abbott mansion, desperately needing to confide in Jack, to warn him before Billy crosses a point of no return, but instead she is met with Diane, who immediately senses the crisis brewing, because Diane has lived enough lives, schemed enough schemes, and endured enough betrayals to recognize the look in Sally's eyes, the trembling
urgency of someone who feels the sand slipping through the hourglass, and Sally spills the truth, that Billy has aligned himself with Kane and is about to gamble with something that could burn everything to the ground, explaining how Kane dangled the AI software, how Billy rationalized that he could just threaten Victor rather than actually deploy it, but how that thin line is a dangerous illusion. Because Victor is not a man who cowers when threatened, and if Billy thinks a mere bluff will control him, he is gravely mistaken. Yet Sally fears something worse, that once Billy tastes the possibility of complete victory, he won't be able to resist going all the way, plunging into Kane's scheme headfirst until there's no escape. And as Sally voices her fears, Diane listens but grows conflicted, because although she understands Sally's dread, Diane's first instinct is to protect Jack, not expose him to another family implosion that he will inevitably try to fix, since Jack always shoulders the burden of being the Abbott patriarch, even when it costs him personally. So Diane debates internally whether she should even involve Jack or simply try to intervene on her own. But the reality is, neither she nor Sally may be able to stop Billy once Kane finishes weaving his web, for Kane is cunning, and he knows exactly which buttons to push, painting Victor not only as the enemy of Billy's future but as the thief of his past, reminding Billy of every time Victor humiliated him. Every business deal sabotaged, every relationship tainted by Victor's meddling, and Kane does not simply appeal to Billy's anger, he appeals to his hunger for respect, for power, for finally being more than just Jack Abbott's troubled little brother. And in Kane's vision, the destruction of Victor Newman becomes the ultimate equalizer, the act that would rewrite history and cement Billy as the man who did what no one else could. Yet beneath that seductive promise lies a ticking time bomb. Because Kane's motives are not purely about Billy's redemption or empowerment, they are about Kane's vendetta, Kane's bitterness, Kane's thirst for revenge at any cost. And if Billy gets caught in the crossfire, Kane may not even care, as long as Victor goes down. But what Kane may underestimate is Victor's uncanny ability to sniff out betrayal before it detonates. Because Victor has outmaneuvered countless adversaries over the years, and even when he appears weakened, he is always watching, always planning, always ready to turn the tables, which means that Kane and Billy's alliance, no matter how carefully they craft it, is built on a foundation of sand, destined to crumble beneath the weight of Victor's retaliation. But that truth does not stop Kane from leaning in, from pushing harder, from dangling the intoxicating thrill of victory before Billy like a forbidden fruit, while Sally and Diane stand as the only voices trying to stop him from biting into it. Yet will their words carry enough weight to pull him back, or will Billy, blinded by years of resentment, finally embrace his sinister side fully, choosing Kane's path even if it risks everything? And if he does, how will Jack respond when he learns his brother is once again barreling towards self-destruction, perhaps dragging the entire Abbott family with him? For in Genoa City, victories are fleeting, alliances are fragile, and the price of vengeance is always higher than expected, meaning that by the end of this tangled mess, Billy may not only regret siding with Kane, he may lose everything he holds dear, while Victor, bloodied but unbowed, rises once more, proving that no matter how many enemies conspire against him, the Newman Empire always endures, leaving Billy and Kane to pick up the pieces of their shattered gamble, haunted by the knowledge that they tempted fate and paid the price. Kane Ashby tempting Billy Abbott's sinister side while Diane Jenkins Abbott faces a panicked visitor is the kind of explosive soap opera drama that perfectly encapsulates the stormy tension that The Young and the Restless thrives on. And to understand the gravity of this storyline, we must peel back the many layers of these characters and their fraught histories, because on Monday, September 15th, the chessboard of Genoa City will be filled with dangerous moves and emotional detonations that threaten to spiral out of control, starting with Kane, whose resentment of Victor Newman and his controlling reign has been simmering for far too long, finally finding what he believes to be the perfect opportunity to lure Billy into his dangerous orbit, since Kane knows Billy has always battled his inner demons, whether it be gambling addictions, reckless business moves, destructive affairs, or his ongoing quest to step out of his older brother Jack's shadow. And Kane is not foolish enough to approach Billy without ammunition, which is why he cancelled his prior business launch but dangled an alternative that could prove far more enticing, a stolen piece of AI software with the potential to obliterate Victor's empire, software that doesn't just carry business implications but also moral ones, because its illegal nature ensures that anyone who touches it risks jail time, career suicide, and permanent damage to their reputations. But Kane is banking on the fact that Billy's anger and thirst for payback outweigh his caution, and as Billy sits across from him, we can almost feel the wheels turning in his head, the shadow of every past defeat at Victor's hands dancing in his mind, whispering that this may be the one chance to finally win. to destroy the man who has so often crushed him like an insect beneath his boot. Yet even as Kane pushes, stoking the flames of vengeance, reminding Billy of Delia's tragic death and how Victor, in Billy's twisted memory, always seemed to profit while Billy lost everything. There is an undercurrent of danger in Billy's demeanor, because while he craves victory over Victor, he also craves control, and Kane's slick manipulation threatens to push him into territory that he cannot so easily retreat from. And meanwhile, elsewhere in the Abbott mansion, Sally Spectre rushes to Diane in a state of pure panic, desperate to intervene before Billy does something irrevocable, her fiery hair practically glowing with the urgency of her mission as she blurts out to Diane that Billy is about to make the biggest mistake of his life, and Sally, who has been down dangerous roads herself and knows the intoxicating lure of power mixed with revenge, fears that Billy will fall under Kane's spell completely, which could not only destroy Billy's future but also pull the Abbott family name into yet another public scandal. And Diane, who has just begun to feel stable after years of turmoil, betrayal, and her own resurrections, both literal and figurative, stiffens with dread as Sally lays out the details: the cancelled launch, the AI program, the plan to use it as leverage against Victor, and the terrifying possibility that Billy may not stop at threats but instead use it to devastate Victor's empire outright. And while Sally insists that Jack must be told so he can intervene, Diane hesitates, torn between protecting her son Kyle, keeping Jack from being dragged into another war, and the deep gnawing fear that Billy has already chosen his path, because Diane has always sensed the darker streak that runs through Billy, the reckless gambler who lives on the edge of ruin, and she knows that once he commits to Kane's plan, there may be no turning back. And so as Kane continues his psychological chess game with Billy, painting visions of Victor finally brought to his knees, Billy stares down his own reflection in Kane's rhetoric, a reflection of the man he both despises and secretly fears becoming, the man driven by revenge at any cost, while Sally and Diane argue upstairs about whether to warn Jack or keep him away from the fire, unaware that every second wasted allows Kane to dig his hooks deeper into Billy's psyche. And what makes this storyline so potent is that it draws on years of history: Billy's long-standing vendetta against Victor, Kane's endless need to prove himself after years of being dismissed, Diane's protective instincts and complicated place in the Abbott family, Sally's desperation to be seen as trustworthy despite her own checkered past, and the shadow of Victor Newman looming over it all. Because Victor is not just a man but an empire, and empires do not crumble easily, nor do they forgive those who attempt to tear them down, which means that no matter what path Billy chooses, whether he resists Kane and risks Kane turning his sights on him, or whether he joins Kane and risks his soul in the process, the storm that follows will engulf everyone. And while Kane promises triumph, the truth is that Kane himself is gambling with forces far larger than he can control, for Victor Newman has survived hostile takeovers, betrayals by family, corporate espionage, and even death itself in ways that defy reason, and history has shown that those who cross Victor rarely come out unscathed. And so this Monday episode is not just about one choice but about the intertwining fates of characters who cannot resist circling each other like predators and prey. And as the Abbott mansion becomes the stage for Sally's frantic warnings, Diane's guarded fear, and the looming threat of Jack being dragged into another catastrophic battle, Kane's smirk grows wider in his meeting with Billy, confident that the younger Abbott is seconds away from sealing a pact that could change Genoa City forever. Though whether it leads to victory or mutual destruction remains to be seen, because on the young and the restless, alliances formed in desperation often end in betrayal, and every secret whispered in shadows eventually comes roaring into the light. Kane Ashby tempting Billy Abbott's sinister side while Diane Jenkins Abbott faces a panicked visitor is the kind of explosive soap opera drama that perfectly encapsulates the stormy tension that the young and the restless thrives on. And to understand the gravity of this storyline, we must peel back the many layers of these characters and their fraught histories, because on Monday, September 15th, the chessboard of Genoa City will be filled with dangerous moves and emotional detonations that threaten to spiral out of control, starting with Kane, whose resentment of Victor Newman and his controlling reign has been simmering for far too long, finally finding what he believes to be the perfect opportunity to lure Billy into his dangerous orbit, since Kane knows Billy has always battled his inner demons, whether it be gambling addictions, reckless business moves, destructive affairs, or his ongoing quest to step out of his older brother Jack's shadow. And Kane is not foolish enough to approach Billy without ammunition, which is why he cancelled his prior business launch but dangled an alternative that could prove far more enticing, a stolen piece of AI software with the potential to obliterate Victor's empire. Software that doesn't just carry business implications but also moral ones, because its illegal nature ensures that anyone who touches it risks jail time, career, suicide, and permanent damage to their reputations. But Kane is banking on the fact that Billy's anger and thirst for payback outweigh his caution, and as Billy sits across from him, we can almost feel the wheels turning in his head, the shadow of every past defeat at Victor's hands dancing in his mind, whispering that this may be the one chance to finally win, to destroy the man who has so often crushed him like an insect beneath his boot. Yet even as Kane pushes, stoking the flames of vengeance, reminding Billy of Delia's tragic death and how Victor, in Billy's twisted memory, always seemed to profit while Billy lost everything, there is an undercurrent of danger in Billy's demeanor, because while he craves victory over Victor, he also craves control, and Kane's slick manipulation threatens to push him into territory that he cannot so easily retreat from, for Kane is a master at presenting sin as strategy, destruction as liberation, vengeance as justice, and Billy, who has spent much of his adult life dancing on the edge of disaster, feels that gnawing hunger inside him stirring once more, that insidious whisper that says maybe he deserves to lean into the darker impulses that Jack has always warned him about. Maybe it is time to stop being the underdog and start being the predator. While elsewhere in the Abbott mansion, Sally Spectre bursts through the door in a state of panic, her fiery hair practically blazing as a visual metaphor for the urgency of her mission, startling Diane Jenkins Abbott, who was just savoring a rare moment of calm, and Sally's voice trembles as she insists that Diane listen, that Billy is on the verge of making the biggest mistake of his life, and Sally's desperation isn't just about Billy, it's about all of them, because she knows that when Billy self-destructs, he doesn't go down alone, he takes everyone around him with him, and Diane stiffens, her polished composure slipping for just a moment as Sally lays out the sordid details, Kane canceling the launch, offering Billy stolen AI software, a plan that could bring down Victor Newman but also destroy Billy in the process, and Diane, who has clawed her way back from the dead, literally in the eyes of Genoa City residents, feels the icy grip of dread as she processes this information, because she has watched men chase vengeance before, and she knows it is a road paved in ruin. But Sally insists that Jack must be told immediately, that only Jack can stop Billy before it's too late, and Diane hesitates, torn between her instincts to protect Jack and her fear that Sally may be right, because Diane has seen enough to know that Billy's appetite for self-sabotage is as strong as his appetite for power, and in her mind, images flash of past disasters, Billy gambling away fortunes, spiraling into addiction, blowing up relationships, falling into Victor's traps time and time again, yet always somehow dragging the Abbott family into the fallout, and while Diane wants to keep Jack shielded, she knows deep down that if Billy falls into Kane's scheme, the Abbott name will once again be tied to scandal and shame, which is the last thing she and Jack need as they try to rebuild stability in their marriage and in the family business. So upstairs a war of words brews between Diane and Sally, Diane urging caution, Sally insisting on action, while downstairs Kane sharpens his pitch like a blade, leaning closer to Billy, his tone smooth, persuasive, dangerous, laying out a vision where Billy is finally more than Victor's punching bag, finally the man who broke Newman instead of the man Newman broke, and Billy listens, torn between the angel and devil on his shoulders, remembering Delia, remembering every insult from Victor, every failed business, every time Jack had to save him, and the temptation feels almost irresistible, because Kane makes it sound not like a crime but like destiny, and Billy has always been weak when destiny calls, but what Kane doesn't know is that deep in Billy's mind, there is a darker voice than even Kane anticipates, a voice that doesn't just want to use the AI as leverage but wants to unleash it, scorch the earth, and let Victor burn, and if Billy gives in to that voice, he may not only destroy Victor but himself, yet Kane, blinded by his own vendetta, cannot see the monster he is helping awaken. And as Diane wrings her hands and Sally fights for Jack's involvement, the larger question looms, what happens when Victor finds out? Because Victor always finds out, and when he does, Kane and Billy will both be in his crosshairs, and history tells us that Victor never loses, not truly, because he is the great phoenix of Genoa City, rising from every plot, every betrayal, every downfall, stronger and more ruthless than before, And so this day in Genoa City is not just another day, it is a powder keg of family loyalty, betrayal, vengeance, and desperate choices, and as Kane smirks, thinking he has Billy where he wants him, and Billy stares at the precipice of his own destruction, and Sally begs Diane to act, and Diane fears that action may only make things worse. The tension coils tighter and tighter, until it feels inevitable that something, or someone, is going to explode, because in The Young and the Restless, sins don't stay buried, alliances don't stay loyal, and the war between the Abbotts and Victor Newman is one that can only end in devastation.